Ben Domenech is the editor-at-large at The Spectator. He's also a Fox News contributor. And most Friday joins me for a week in review. Good morning, Ben. Good Friday to you.
Good morning, Hugh. Good to be with you. Plenty to talk about this week. What are you hot on at
Let's
the moment?
start with the House GOP crack-up. I just had Mike Lawler on from New York, one of the moderate Republicans. He says there are at least five, who will sign a discharge petition to bring a clean 3-month CR bill to the floor. They will pass it and send it to Chuck Schumer if Matt Gaetz, Matt Rosendale, and Dan Bishop continue to screw this thing up. What do you make of the House? And by the way, Lawler had nothing but praise for Kevin McCarthy, called him a Job. But these people are just nuts.
Well, I think that, Hugh, there's a lot of stuff going on here. And one thing that I think we need to keep in mind is that, there are more than 130 members who have come to the House since the last time there was a shutdown. In other words, they're new. They haven't gone through it before. And even for those who experienced the partial shutdown that they had, last time around, Donald Trump was the president, and he had the ability to make choices about what funding actually went to what places, which is a key because, in this situation with Joe Biden in the White House, he has control over whether the people get paid who really need to be paid, especially, when it comes to something like border security. And that's the kind of a little wrinkle here that I think people don't appreciate. When it comes to the people who have been, just sticking their heads in the sand and demanding things that are absolutely impossible, I don't think that you should take those demands seriously. There were people who tried to work both on the House Freedom Caucus side, with Chip Roy and working with Scott Perry and other moderates to try to find some plan forward that would, have a border-focused CR that would prioritize that issue, which obviously plays to the benefit of Republicans, but they simply could not get their own team to come along when it came to the right flank, which has different priorities. And they'll make more and more demands each time around. This is,
Ben, it's not really a right flank. It's a third column. And the guy who can end this is former President Trump, because what's going to happen is Matt Gaetz is going to deliver the House to the Democrats. And even if former President Trump gets reelected, he's going to get impeached in the first week if the House is under the control of Jeffries.
That's a level of foresight that I think is a little bit too much to ask of this crew. Keep in mind there's one other element here that's going on. We also had the news this week, of course, that Matt Gaetz is very open about looking to run for governor of Florida. Keep in mind Ron DeSantis has turned out. And there's already jockeying between him and Byron Donalds, and other people who might potentially be, names that could get thrown into the mix for that. This is a lot about personal politics and animosity and wanting to seem like something for the cameras and for the eyeballs outside of D.C. Without having to actually deal with the process as it works, and as we know, it has to work with a narrow majority.
Well, I know that Matt Rosendale wants to run for Senate in Montana. Yes. That's a non-starter. I know Dan Bishop wanted to be the Attorney General of North Carolina. He's kicking that can down the road. But Matt Gaetz for governor of Florida, if he goes outside of that safest district, he's going to get a buzz cut.
I think you are absolutely right on that, Hugh. But that's not, again, this is not. We're not dealing with foresight here. I think that this is just kind of a knee-jerk proposition. And look, there was not. I think that what the McCarthy strategy was really to sort of demonstrate to people, hey, look, this is what's really going on here. And you saw that with the votes that were going down. Pelosi can vote about a rule going down underneath McCarthy's leadership, but I think that this is about proving what's really going on here, which is that there is a small crew of people who won't go along with anything, who want to sort of make demands that could never be met. And ultimately, that gives you a weak hand against any kind of negotiation with the Senate. It forces you to work with Democrats in order to avoid a shutdown. And again, like I said, the shutdown this time around will be much worse.
Oh, it will.
Than what
You're
we saw
right,
before.
Ben. But I just want Gaetz and Rosendale and Bishop and their supporters to understand they're screwing Trump. They are really screwing Trump. Yeah. Let me move on to Zelensky. Russia suffered a defeat on the battlefield yesterday. Ukrainian armor has broken through. Narrow, but they are expanding the break. Joe Biden, meanwhile, won't send them ATACMS, and Republican support is 30 members now don't want to get anything. And J.D. Vance actually articulated a very serious point of view, which is, I'm not for Vietnamization. which is what Joe Biden is committed to. If you want to bring back the Republicans, you got to show progress on the ground, which is happening, and you have to have a plan. And I don't think the president's got the capacity to put a plan together. Do you, Ben?
No, I don't. And I think that most Republicans are looking at this through that lens. I mean, I think it's as much an indictment of the Biden administration approach as anything. And look, I was talking to Michael Waltz, who was, I think, been on your program before about this just yesterday, and what he basically agrees with is that idea that you're giving them money at a certain stage, but you have to give them the things that would actually change the dynamic on the ground. Otherwise, it heads toward this stagnation. It heads toward a situation that doesn't benefit anybody, and it is not focused on actually winning and ending this war. And I think that that's something that is, unfortunately, this White House has just done this, over and over again. They did it with the F-16s. They've done it. They're doing it now where they delay a decision and then they hem and they haw and they don't give the kind of resources that are necessary in order to change the situation. Unfortunately, that's what we're trapped in. And the level of incompetence that we have seen from them, just this past month with this Iran negotiation, with the repeated sort of incidents on the international stage, the embarrassment at the G20, and everything else that's come out of this administration. We are just dealing with the JVs of the JVs of the Obama administration, and it is really hurting us on the world stage.
Now, you mentioned Mike Waltz. I did not talk to the congressman yesterday. I almost picked up the phone to call him because of the Mark Milley story in the Atlantic. Mike Waltz has defended
that as well.
Waltz has defended Milley to me a dozen times, like Robert O'Brien. They both want to defend Milley to me because I know what the conservative critique is. He's got his problem. And Milley stabs Waltz in the back. He stabs all the Trump people in the back. And it's clearly, don't look at this Afghanistan debacle over here. Mark Milley saved the Constitution. I have never seen a more obvious cleanup job on aisle D.C. but in my life. What did you think of that article?
Well, I thought that we're beginning to see this, Milley hagiography that's going to come out in waves, I think, and we're going to have to. I think people, need to stand up and push back against it and do so authoritatively, with confidence, especially those who have defended him in the past and who have the kind of ability to say, hey, look, I was not opposed to this guy in a knee-jerk fashion, but he's proven to be what he is. And I just despise this kind of activity. It's a total spin job, and frankly, it's an indictment of the publication that it appeared in, which has just become a complete spin machine for all of the worst characters in the Washington blob in so many repeated ways. And I just Milley is someone who does not command the respect of people within our armed forces. I know that you're connected to them. I know that plenty of them would take issue with him on a score of things other than the kind of things that he gets criticized for in the conservative media, which more has to do with wokeness and stuff like that. But I just think that this is, we have a number of problems in our military that need to be addressed, in addition to everything related to the questions about spending strategy and our posture on the world stage.
All right, media question, Ben. Rupert Murdoch stepping down. Yeah. Is that just a headline or is that a real deal?
Well, here's what I'll say. I don't think anybody, even at the ripe age of 92, believes that Rupert is retiring to go sit in the beach chair.
Right.
So I think, this chairman emeritus label is one that it does not actually, involve removing him from, any kind of influence on the process. Look, he's had an incredible career and has had such an outsized impact on politics and on media. It's really impossible to think of a figure, in the past 40 years who had as much of an impact as he did in terms of anticipating, media trends, in terms of everything that he did to change the landscape. I'm hopeful that what we see is not going to be something that, rejects I think the best things that, he was able to achieve in terms of American media, and that still, in his letter to everyone, was standing up for free speech rights and everything else related to that. And as much as the left can pretend that that's, something that, is a ridiculous sort of wrapping yourself in the flag of free speech, I think it's very real, and I think he's very concerned about it. And I think
my comment, and I'll get a quick 30 seconds. He served the underserved or unserved audience. That's where his genius was.
Yes, and I think that there's, we should appreciate that, and there's going to be a lot of people, with knives out and saying that, this is, condemning him in so many different ways. We already just saw that, with Elizabeth Warren's comments the other night. But it's one of these things where I think, we'll appreciate him, in retrospect. I think that there's a real history to be rewritten about the kind of genius that he brought to bear.
Walter Isaacson needs a new book. It's probably Rupert Murdoch. Ben Domenech, always a pleasure. Follow him on the site, formerly known as Twitter, now known as X at B Domenech. I'll talk to you next week, Ben.